Oh, you are recording. All right, sorry guys. We're going to talk about fraud and white collar crime in this module. So let's start with the idea of what is organizational criminology, since there are two types. There's illegal organized crime, such as the mafia, and we'll talk about these folks in the next module. And then there's legitimate businesses committing crimes, and that's what we're talking about in this. Also, we'll dabble a little bit in terms of white collar crime, which is a crime committed by a person of respectability and high social status in the course of their occupation. All right. So the most infamous white collar criminal today is a guy named Bernie Madoff, who embezzled $65 billion with a B dollars from his investors in a Ponzi scheme. And I'm gonna link a movie for you guys to watch on Mr. Madoff and how he got away with this for so long. All right, so let's talk about corporate crime. And corporate crime is a criminal act committed by one or more employees of a corporation as part of the corporate practices. Okay, simple definition. Some of the infamous corporate crime villains, we have Enron, we have Volkswagen, who in the last 10 years was caught and convicted of lying about their emission standard test in a very clever way. And then we have a company called Bre-X Minerals, which I'm not sure you know this story, but we'll talk a little bit about it. It's a crazy story of how these guys drove up the price of their stock through a very fraudulent practice. All right, so let's talk first about securities-related crimes. So the securities-related crimes are governed by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. This was established by President Roosevelt following the stock market crash Black Friday in 1929, and then we had since then, following that, President Roosevelt instituted a number of safeguards to keep the banks and stock market from trying to make it better, and let's just leave it at that. And so the SEC was established to prevent crimes related to the issuance and trading of stock. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but it's there to investigate. And so there are four main types of securities-related crimes. There's what's called churning, which we'll talk about in just a second. Insider trading. Martha Stewart went to jail for insider trading. Stock manipulation, and boiler rooms. All right, what is churning? Churning is essentially, so here's how stockbrokers make money. Each time a stock is traded, there's a small commission that goes to the broker who makes the trade. Churning is the practice of convincing investors to buy and sell stock when it's not in their best interest to do so, when the only intent of the sale is not to benefit the stockholder or the customer, but to benefit the broker himself or herself by creating more or higher volume of trade. Again, the stockbroker gets paid each time a stock is sold or bought. And so churners will call you and say, hey, I got a hot tip on this stock, you need to buy it. Or they'll call you and say, I heard a rumor that this stock's getting ready, that their earnings weren't as strong. You really need to get rid of it. Neither one of those things are true. They're just trying to get you to move stocks around because they get paid every move you make. That's called churning. It's illegal. Let's see. Let's move on to insider trading. So insider trading it's not a complicated concept. It's the use of non-public information to obtain an unfair advantage in trading stocks, either to make more money or to avoid losing money. Example, a CEO friend tells you, hey, you know, we got a big thing coming, getting ready to make a big buy, it's going to drive our stock prices up. I want to get in on this, go buy some of our stock. Martha Stewart, here's what she did and how she got caught. She was convicted and sent to prison. She went to prison in a town called Philippi, West Virginia, in a white-collar jail. So supposedly she was tipped off. I don't think it was by friends. I think it was by her future son-in-law. She had invested a bunch of money in a company called ImClone. And ImClone was was a failed pharmaceutical company that was doing cancer research. And they had been working on the development of a cancer drug for quite some time. And it turns out the results weren't very good. The drug wasn't effective. And so what her son-in-law, future son-in-law, told her was that, hey, the next couple of days we're going to be releasing the results of our trials, and they're not very good. So, you might want to dump your stock because the stock's going to crash once the public finds out our trials have failed and the cancer drug doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And just before the announcement, she sold her shares, avoiding a huge loss. And, somebody found out about this and they prosecuted her in prison. Stock manipulation is manipulating a stock price by creating an artificial demand. And this is what Bre-X did. So the classic case of this is a broker with a company sort of talking up a stock to make it more valuable than it is. What Bre-X did was they basically drove up the price of their stock by claiming to have found, they were a mining company, and they claimed that they were on the verge of a huge gold find in Indonesia, and that as evidence of that, they had found little bits of gold as they were drilling through the dirt to get to where they thought the gold mine was, and every now and then they would announce, look what we found. We found some more gold. We're getting close. We're getting close. Well, people are gold crazy. And so the market, the value of their stock went through the roof. It went from $6 a share to $250 a share in a very short period of time. That stock manipulation was, in fact, they were not getting closer to the gold, but we'll come back to that in a minute. And wash trading is essentially what the Hunts did to coin the silver market, corner the silver market back in the 1970s. And what the Hunts did was they created volume trading. They just started buying gold, and they were like, oh, the Hunts are buying silver. I'm sorry. They started buying silver. And other investors were like, well, the Hunts are buying all this silver. There must be something to this. My in-laws got caught up in this, and in my brother-in-law's house, there's a safe full of silver. It goes all the way back to the Hunt scandal of the 1970s, which they bought at like $18 an ounce, and is now worth like, I don't know, $4 or $5 an ounce. They took a sad loss on this. All right, bankruptcy fraud is another form of organizational crime. It's just a scam that's used to take advantage of loopholes in bankruptcy laws. And bankruptcy laws basically means you can declare bankruptcy and not have to pay your bills. And so here's an example, what's called the new company scam. And this is when a new corporation is formed. They get credit from a bank. And they start ordering stuff and supplies and things. And then before the company declares bankruptcy, they fence or get rid of all of the assets they have. So they buy new computers and they sell them. They buy new desks and they sell them. And then they declare bankruptcy and they don't have to pay back the loan. They use that loan to buy all this stuff to begin with. They keep what they made in the fencing process as a profit. This is illegal. Another form is an old company scam, and this is essentially when companies start selling off all of their assets or start reassigning all of their assets with the knowledge that they are going to declare bankruptcy, and they're pretending everything's fine. They're just selling assets, and all they're really doing is trying to squeeze as much out of the company as they can before they declare bankruptcy and avoid having to pay their bills. Insider-related fraud. So there's three types of fraud that are related to your working within an industry, and this is misusing one's position within a company. Whereas the other types of fraud essentially involve the company itself being actively involved, such as Bre-X or Volkswagen. This is you stealing from an honest company. So embezzlement, which is simply just funneling company money to your personal account. It's estimated that about $1 billion a year are lost this way. Employee theft is a major problem. Stealing of work-related goods, overstating hours worked, filing false expense reports, etc. And then also the sale of confidential information, such as selling valuable information to other companies. Espionage, corporate espionage, is a form of insider-related fraud, all three of which are illegal, by the way. Now, lastly, I want to talk quickly about counterfeit and fraud, and this as an example. I'm just using this as an example. The guy named Frank Abagnale, and he was a master forger, and he forged his way before the age of 21 to $2.5 million in cash, which he got from, again, back up for a second, this happened in the 1960s. So $2.5 million in forgery money in 1960s dollars, which is worth a whole lot more than that today, all before the age of 21. And Mr. Abagnale there was a movie made about him called Catch Me If You Can, and he was on a couple of, he's pretty famous, you know, he was forging checks. He claimed to be an airline pilot. He was forging checks to himself, and he would take them to the bank and cash them. He did the same thing as a doctor in Louisiana, or in Alabama, a lawyer in Louisiana. Yeah, the guy was quite good at it, and amazing that he was young. He's your age. He was, you know, early 20s. Before age 21, he stole $2.5 million. Anyhow, sort of a famous case. All right, well, let's stop here. The next module will be on Bernie Madoff.